I think that we can sometimes make the mistake of confusing anger with aggression. Anger and aggression are not the same thing. Anger is an emotional energy that arises in the body and wants to move through us like any other emotion. And in its raw form, the way that I see it, what we're doing in a practice of nonviolence is we are learning to welcome in our aliveness as it shows up without repressing it and without amplifying it. What I understand, and I don't know if I'm right, but what I understand about where liver energy and anger energy can get imbalanced is in the repression of it or the amplification of it. But the way in which it naturally needs to move through our bodies will be life affirming. Because the energy of anger is an energy that moves up and out. It's an up and out energy. Feel how anger, it goes whoosh and out. It's a short energy. It's not a long energy. It doesn't, like when we begin adding in a lot of stories about wrongness and entitlement and righteousness, and we begin feeding the anger, that's what I understand to be the ditch on that side of the road. That's also going to be toxic to your body when you're running that as a way of being. But the being in tune with what your life affirming system is telling you about your needs, about your state, about your conditions, about what you're feeling, that's just neutral data that we learn to feel and track and discharge and work with. And in that sense, that's what I mean when I'm talking about like working with it. I'm not talking about amplifying it and storing it. And I'm also not talking about repressing and suppressing it, which in my understanding and my training as a psychologist, that's where we get a lot of mental health disorders, and those mental health disorders turn into physical illnesses. And that has to do with an imbalance and a misuse because we aren't taught how to work with, discharge, and move through the full range of emotions that are life affirming and data that we need. And then how that looks is, oh, there I go again. I'm adding a whole lot of story into my anger and I'm amplifying it. Oh, that's what I was doing. Okay, I get it now. Oh, I know what I was doing. I was repressing my anger and suppressing it and trying to be like a nice person. Aha, that's what I was doing. That's another adaptive mechanism that was kicking in. Okay, I get it. That was a way that I was trying to stay safe. That was a way that I was trying to meet needs for self-expression. All right. And you're going to soften into everything you discover yourself doing with graciousness and compassion. And then you're going to set an intention. Okay, so what I'm practicing, what I'm trying to do more of is let the feeling arise, track and feel the feeling, stay connected to my needs, stay connected to my choicefulness, stay connected to my deeper intention. And I'm going to keep practicing bringing that quality of being into every moment. And when I can't do it, when I discover that I fall off the balance beam and I fall down on the ground, I pick myself up with gentleness and compassion and I go, yep, I'm practicing. I don't have to be there yet. And I'm going to get back on that balance beam. I'm going to try again because I need to work this into a body memory through repetition over and over again. And that repetition means I'm not going to get it right for a while. And that's fine. I love NVC, which is the nonviolent communication model. But for me, the nonviolent communication model welcomes in anger and intensity and authentic expression. That's my style. I feel like what I'm often doing is speaking a little bit against or in contrast to perhaps the way in which we sometimes apply it, which is that we have to be nice. And I don't think that nonviolent communication is about being nice and sanitized and palatable. It's about working with what is real with a lot of internal capacity. And I actually think, Nadia, what you're describing to me, to my ear, sounds far more nonviolent. The ability to be with somebody and enjoy their desperation and their anger. And let's go back to something that Chris said at the beginning. He was like, I feel like I'm in an abusive relationship. And there was a moment where I was like, oh, we could dive into that and I'm going to dive into that now in retrospect. It is not an abusive relationship. When somebody is upset and angry and real, that is not abuse. That is not abuse. That is authenticity. And part of what I think we are needing to develop, like, is the ability to stay self-connected, grounded, and self-trusting in the face of no matter what people around us are doing. It's not about getting rid of parts of ourselves so that we can stay in certain kinds of content in a more intellectual, framed up way. So I feel a lot of celebration with what you're bringing in. And I actually think that there's something even more nonviolent about what you're suggesting than about perhaps some of how it's been sounding in some of the ways that it's being delivered.